Hi folks, welcome to today's edition of our videocast, My Life with Robert Burns. We're pleased you could join us again. If you'd watched our videocast before, you'll know that I'm Douglas Mackenzie, and joining me in our conversation with our guest today is Jim Thompson. Hi Jim.
Hi Douglas, hi everybody.
Jim and me are friends and colleagues from Newcombe Burns Club. In an earlier episode, we expanded our horizons and had our first session with one of our international cronies. That was so well received, we thought we'd travel to Canada again. And we're delighted this time to welcome the Canadian director of the Robert Burns World Federation Limited. To tell us about his life with Robert Burns, please welcome Ronnie O'Byrne.
Hi Douglas, hi Jim. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share a few stories in my life with Robert Burns. To give you a little bit of the background, I was born in the year of 1955 and brought up in the metropolis of Winchborough, out in West Lothian, a mining community, and attended the local primary school. At that particular time, the family was very political. My dad was a convener at ICI down in Grangemouth. He was a Labour Party councillor, chairman of the West Lothian constituency Labour Party. So I was brought up in a household that was really quite political and very active in the trade union and the labour movement. As a young teenager, I became quite close to Tam Dael. We're helping campaigning and knocking on doors. So I grew up in that sort of trade union labour environment, and I knew there was a lot of people in the environment at that particular time that were Burns fans. Although I never particularly picked up on it at that point, but I knew they were there. Education-wise, I attended St. Mary's Academy in Bathgate, and was one of those guys that decided when I was 15 that I would maybe like to try and see what job I could get. And I went for an interview with a company in Edinburgh at Brown Brothers. It was an engineering company, and lo and behold, I was accepted even though I was 15. I hadn't even done my O-levels at that particular time, to do a craft apprenticeship. So that's where I served my my time, if you like, from 16 through to 20 years of age, down in the city of Leith, working in the machine shops of the engineering industry in Edinburgh. After my apprenticeship, I spent a little bit of time in England. As a young man, 20 years of age. Actually, I suppose you could say I ran away with my wife, but my future wife and I decided we were going to go down to Torquay one summer, just for the summer, and we ended up staying, and then afterwards decided we were very much in love. And we came back and made our plans to get married in 1979. So 1979, 41 years ago, I married Susan. When I came back up the road to Livingston, I worked at Cameron Ironworks, and then in 1986, a lot of people had told me that maybe one of the things I should be doing was selling. So I applied to a company to see if I could get a job as a salesman, still in engineering. I didn't want to use my engineering background. And I joined an Israeli company called Iskar Cutting Tools, which is now part of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. And it was through joining that company in 1986 that's taken me to the different places around the world.
And you spent a bit of time in Ireland?
I learned to drink Guinness very well. Yeah, I did the salesman's job up in Scotland, and then it was a small company at the time. So an opportunity came along to become a product manager, then an opportunity came along to go to Ireland, and then subsequently they had purchased an Asian division, a Korean company, and then I got an offer. That was my first real managerial job, where I set it up for them, and I set it up in Leeds and Yorkshire, and I got that set up, and then right out of the blue, in 2006, I was asked, would I be interested in going to Canada? So I never actually planned any of this. It was just every so often these opportunities came along, and I was fortunate enough to have a wife that was prepared to move with me, and Susan and I took those opportunities and moved around, you know.
And from what I've read, it sounds as though you took your golf with you and also your poetry with you in all these journeys.
I certainly did. golf, listen, it's two things that you can do no matter what language you talk about. You know, the golf's something that's international. If it's same as if you're a musician, you know, you don't need to speak the language. If you can play the instrument, you can make friends. And golf's a great way, I've found, in moving to different places, that you find friends and you circulate with people and join a golf club and things just develop and happen. So yeah, golf's always been an important part of my life. And the poetry was more of an evolution. The Burns thing was more something that evolved over time, as opposed to just trying to take it. When I left Scotland, I can remember when I was down in the West Midlands, someone's talking about a Burns supper, and down there they all expected us to know Tam O'Shanter and Holy Wally's Prayer and Address to the Haggis. Like, you're Scottish, you have to know it. So you do learn that you better know a little bit about the subject matter, or you can make a fool of yourself very quickly. You know.
I was interested in your slam poetry.
Yeah, well, two things about the slam poetry. First of all, Theo Durgan in Ireland got me a little bit interested in it, but it's still something I do today. There's a poetry slam here in St. Catherine's, runs up until COVID, runs on a last Friday of the month, and when available, I would go up to the poetry slam and take an opportunity to go on the stage against some of the young guys, spoken word poets, and different styles. And it's quite interesting to see the response you get when you get up with a dialect like mine and you threw in a few good Scottish words and to a younger audience. So that's something that I still go along, and I try and cause a wee bit of shock from time to time. You know, it's when I do throw in a poem about an atheist or something like that. You can see the shock and horror for some people when you do such things. You know?
I'm just reading a book at the moment by a guy called Robin Cairns, who I think Jim probably knows. He's a well-known local poet and performer, and he runs a lot of the slam poetry sessions, and he tells some fascinating stories.
Yeah. Now, poetry slams are good fun, but you need to have a strong heart to do a poetry slam, you know, and you need to go there with an attitude. I am definitely going to get booed off stage. So as long as you understand that, you're good. Yeah?
Well, before we get you on to talk about your career in Burns, you mentioned your wife earlier on. Is it worth having a wee mention for your is it two sons you have?
Yeah, listen, as I say, I'm married to Susan for 41 years, and I have two great lads. One of them's a motor mechanic. He works with BMW, and then the other younger guy, he worked with us in the business, and recently, during COVID, sold up his flat in Toronto, and crazily, we think crazily, but went and bought himself 51 acres and a cottage up in Northern Ontario, so that he's got, land up there is dirt cheap, but he's got this lovely little cottage and all these trails with bear and deer and moose, and so at the weekend, him and his brother go shooting up there, and right now they're going up this weekend to clear out the trails for snowmobile season. So they've turned into redneck Canadians. That's the only way I can describe it.
Very good. I think the important thing when you're young is to do whatever you want to. Wherever your heart takes you, you go for it.
Yeah, we're lucky too that they're close by. You know, I've talked to them almost every day in life. You know, so they're good lads. Yeah, very good lads. Very
good. All right, I'm going to pass over to Jim now, who'll get you into conversation about your career with Robert Burns, and we'll come back and talk about some other stuff later.
Okay. Ronnie, they say you're better to start at the beginning with these kind of things. So how did you get started with Burns?
I have two really old memories of Burns. One of them is I can remember my mother sitting handwriting, and one of those wee red jotters that we used to get. I must have been about 9 years of age. I still have the book. And she was handwriting John S. Clarke's view of Robert Burns. It was very much the socialist. John S. He was a president of the Burns Federation, I think maybe late 40s, 1943, 1944, right about then. But was very political. And he took the view at the time, you know, the Russian and proletariat view was very, very much part of the political scene. And my mother was a bit of a firebrand, and I can remember her reading this to me as she hand copied this John S. Clarke view of Burns. That's one memory I have. I can remember my dad used to recite Burns. No, he wouldn't recite Tam O'Shanter, but he knew the quotes. My dad would, and I don't just mean, you know, oh, lads and poor the gifted gears. You know, my dad would then gently scan your fellow man, still gentler sister women, though they may gain a kind of rank to step aside his human. He had all those sort of quotes that he could use at moments. And he knew Burns, but he never pushed it on me. He was more of a Robert Service fan. His party piece was the shoot of Dan McGrew. So I had that, but I didn't really do anything with it. First Burns supper was probably, I think, would have been the ICI. I must have been about 15 or 16 years of age. And the ICI down in Grangemouth had a social club, and I can remember my dad taking me to a Burns supper. But it was way over my head. You know, I didn't really know a great deal about it at that time. But those are two memories that I have of my early days with Burns.
Well, your father would have a pal in me because I've been doing Dan McGrew for, I don't know, 30, 40 years now. It's
one of my party pieces now too.
I love Service, and I always say Scotland's second greatest poet, although he wasn't actually born here, born in Preston. But you must have a few Burns supper highlights in the passing.
Yeah, some of them were at Pomperson Golf Club, and I could never tell you all the stories I have at Pomperson Golf Club in the early days. I suppose, you know, I think nowadays highlights are when you know, like I was invited down to Atlanta Burns Club, you know, where they have the replica cottage in Georgia. And you stand there and you look at the wall and they have a list of all the people that have given their immortal memory. When you stand there, that gives you a little bit. If you just like stand on the bridge on the 18th hole at St. Andrews, you know, you just know who's been there before you. And just to get the opportunity to be one of those that has provided the immortal memory to that club was a highlight. And, you know, 800 men at Calgary, I think maybe Henry was talking about it. You know, I've been to lots of Burns suppers, but I'll tell you what, when you stand up in front of 800 men and a few of them have had a drink, it's a challenge, you know. So those are memorable events. But nowadays, you know, other suppers. I think another one that I'll never forget was I don't know if you'll remember the story. There was a young serviceman killed at the Cenotaph here in Canada a few years ago, and he was a member of the Argyll and Southern Highlanders, and they have an annual Burns supper. And on that particular, the Burns supper that they had up in the officers' mess in Hamilton, to go along there, and they had that was a very emotional Burns supper to see how they sort of honoured him and honoured the regiment, given the sort of sacrifice they had put forward. So yeah, along the years, there's been some great Burns suppers that I've attended. Yeah.
I'm aware that you've spoken at one of my favourite places to go is the old F&C, the Fold-House and Crofthead Club as well. Lovely folk.
Yeah, in actual fact, I have a standing arrangement with Karen Kane, because she's president this year, that I'm supposed to be giving the immortal memory in February 2021. I don't know whether that's going to happen, but Karen and Bobby asked me to go back and do the immortal memory there next year. So, as I say, I don't know whether it'll happen, but hopefully it does. Hopefully I'll get an opportunity to go back. Yeah, but I know a lot of the people at the F&C Burns Club, you know, and Bobby and Karen are very good friends, yeah.
Just for the purposes of letting the folk watching know, can you tell them some of the places in the world that you've spoken?
Well, Atlanta, I mean, the Urbana conferences, the North American Burns conferences take you all over the place, you know, so performed down in Williamsburg, down in Texas, across Canada from Vancouver to Edmonton to Calgary, and all over Scotland and Ireland. I have a friend who's in Holland, has a golf business in Holland called Made in Scotland, but he also owns a golf club at the Dutch. So he runs a Burns supper, and I've been over to speak and perform at that a few times, and in the process with Royal Bank of Scotland. But predominantly now, North America is where I do things, and then I always try towards the end of the burn season here in North America. I try and go over to Scotland. So, you know, I've been to Perth Burns Club with Bill Dawson, and I get invitations every year, and it's been difficult working. What I plan to do when I retire, if everything works out, is literally go and see my mum in Scotland and stay there for 3 weeks and go to Burn Slippers every 2 nights or something like that. Will be part of the future plan too. Yeah.
Doesn't sound like a bad idea at all. I've got to say, staying at home and going to Burn Suppers. But
in your list there, Ronnie, you didn't mention your connections with the house at Dumfries.
Oh well, Jane and I have become very good friends. That was I think it was in Yorkshire at that particular time, and I had met a number, you know, but I had joined the federation this time, knew Harry and May McGuffog, and was going to sort of Yorkshire events and burning suppers back and forward. And then I got a phone call to say, would I like to perform at the Tam O'Shanter competition hosted. Jim wrote the book at the Dumfries Ladies Burns Club at the Globe Inn. So that was a nice thing to be able to do and win. Yeah.
It's a great event that they've built it up well over the years.
It is, yeah. And I think, you know, gave me a little bit of credibility in as much that, you know, all of a sudden there's something on the resume that people can recognize, you know. So it helped, for sure it helped. Yeah.
So would that make Tam O'Shanter one of your favourite poems?
It's part of the repertoire. I think it's a fabulous narrative poem. If I was perfectly honest, I've done it that many times. I get a wee bit fed up doing the whole thing now. You know, and you have to be a bit of a purist to go to the Globe Inn to hear 8 people perform Tam O'Shanter on a single evening as they do at the competition. I don't listen. If this way a young friend still has a big resonation for me, just in terms of what it means to me, family connections. It's one of the first poems that I learned. I think it's a fabulous piece. You know, it's something that I pass on to other people. They say, listen, this, you know, your kid's getting to 18. You know, just show them that. You know, it's a fabulous piece of poetry.
Is there any particular poem that you like reciting that you can maybe do a few verses for us?
I think an underrated thing, and I know it's difficult to perform, but the Jolly Beggars, Love and Liberty, I think is it's an absolutely fabulous piece of work. And just the first couple of stanzas of the cantata, when just Burns is in so few words how he can paint where there was brevity to paint a picture and set the scene, and then you read it, and when you read it, it can be a wee bit difficult, and then you get the language of it, the rhythm, the music. And I use this a lot in Canada, mainly because of the guy in red rags that's lost his arm and his leg, that's sitting in the corner kissing his prostitute. He lost his arm and his leg at the Heights of Abraham at the Battle of Quebec, you know, in 1759. So
yeah,
so it's a lovely connection for me, not to sort of try and show everybody the whole cantata, but just to give them a little piece of it. So this is Love and Liberty, Jolly Beggars. When lion leaves bestow the yard, are waving like the bocky bird bedem called Boreas Blast. When hailstones drive with bitter skite and infant frost begin to bite in hoary Cranrach breast. In echten in a merry cory randy gangle buddies and boosy Nancy's held us floor to drink their oraduddies. With quaffing and laughing, they ranted and they sang, with thumping and jumping, the very girdle rang. First, neath the fire and all the reed rags ain't that. Will Bryce wi' mealy bags, his knapsack on order, his docks he lay within his aims, wi' ishkaba and blanket warm, she blink on a soldier. And aye he gazed the toesy drab, the tether scalp and kiss, while she held up her greedy gab just like an amistris. El smack still did crack still like when he catches foot. Then swagger and stagger, he roared this ditty up. I am a son of Mars, who has been in many wars. I show my cuts and scars whenever I come. This here was for a wench, and the other in a trench, when welcome in the French at the sound o' a drum. I lastly was with Curtis among the floating batteries, and there I left for witness an arm and a limb. But let my country need me, with Elliot to heed me, I'll clatter on my stump to the sound o' a drum. It's fabulous.
Well done.
Well done.
Well done indeed.
I thought you were maybe going to go into a wee bit of a song there with the sound of the drum.
No, that would no. Okay, no, we'll leave it at that. It's more the rhythm of the language that fantastic.
Aye, very good.
Ronnie, what got you involved so heavily with the federation in terms of, you know, being a director and obviously your continual coming to conference and things like that?
Well, when I came to Canada, you know, I knew, you know, I was leaving Yorkshire coming to Canada, so, and I was already a member of the federation, so I phoned up the federation office and asked, listen, can you give me some contact in Canada? And lo and behold, the first person that I met when I came to Canada was May and Alec Crawley, and at the time, May was the director for Canada of the federation. So, and I didn't live close enough to Niagara at that time, but they put me in touch with the Halton Field Club. So before I had even sort of purchased a house, moved the wife and kids over, got myself established in the job, or had a work permit, I was a member of a Burns Club in Canada. It was crazy, you know. So me and Alec furnished that first contact with Halton Field, and then I'm still a member of Halton Field Burns Club. And over the sort of 7 or 8 years since I've joined the Niagara Club as well, because I live sort of halfway between the two now. So I'm a member of the two clubs. And the Halton Field people, Jim and Jean Cunningham and Ron and Chris Ballantyne, they had been members of Urbana, and they were telling me the conferences. And at the time, things were getting really, Urbana was starting to struggle. So they took it upon themselves to help organize the Urbana conferences, and I went along with the flow. So, you know, then you go to the conference, or you organize a conference, and you meet Les Strachan down in the States, and you meet Mark Irvin, and, you know, Jane comes over, and then all those communications and meeting people. Henry, go out to Calgary, meet the guys from Edmonton. So just slowly but surely that circle of friends and the opportunities come along. And of course, you go to conference and people ask you, are you available in 2 years' time to do the immortal memory of this? And the whole thing just snowballs and goes from that point. So I don't need any encouragement to do it. I'm very enthusiastic about it. And then, of course, with regards to the federation, May decided a few years ago that she was going to retire her position as director, and it's a nominated position. So she approached the board and recommended that I be the person that takes over from her. So obviously, you know, I feel as though I have a responsibility to the job, and it is a job to promote Burns' work as best I can and be a board member. And so I come to conference every year that I can come to conference. I usually tie in with a game of golf, but I come to conference every year I possibly can, and very active within Urbana, and through guys like Henry and Les Strachan and Mike Irvin and the clubs, May and Alec and the Halton Field Burns Club, Medicine Hat guys who are part of it all now. Yeah. Almost every week you're talking to people and you're trying to enthuse and encourage and move along from there. Yeah.
Good. Is there quite a lot of inter-club visits in Canada? Because you've got some fair distances to travel.
No, it's difficult. You know, to be honest, it's not that easy to do it. Generally speaking, people try and dedicate themselves to make sure they get to the North American Conference or Urbana Conference. In between times, it's, you know, it was opportunities with business or travel or holidays or vacations and things like that, that in the process of going out there, I would meet up with some of the Burns folk along the way, you know. So, and the Burns season, as far as Burns suppers and things go, it's very short in Canada. Everybody wants to hold the Burns supper on or around the 21st. So you know, like in Scotland, you can get an extended season. Starts on like Burns supper on the 12th of January is quite normal. Having a Burns supper on the 12th of February is also quite normal. Here in Canada, they're a wee bit, you know, everybody wants, so you're limited in the amount of places that you can go. So to extend the season, hence the reason I go to Scotland. I try and go to Scotland in January every year to extend the season a little bit for myself and meet up with people too. Yeah.
Very good. You've talked a lot about the guys, your contemporaries, and the people have got you involved in Burns and such like. Is there anybody within the Burns story itself that stands out as a hero?
That's not, you know, I'm now, anybody stands out a hero. No, listen, I think where I get to with it is, as I learn more about it, I'm more intrigued with the fact, particularly Burns' time in Edinburgh, just the way that and who was around them, and you know, the Edinburgh Music Society, St. Cecilia's Hall, Urbana Tendici. I mean, I didn't know anything about the number of Italians and Germans and musical professionals that were in Edinburgh when Burns was kicking about Edinburgh. I mean, that itself is just an astonishing story to find, you know, back at this time in this stinking old city, the people that were walking about it, and Burns was in the middle of it all, and there was this, I mean, the Enlightenment, excuse me, the Enlightenment period is something I don't know enough about, but certainly something that I'm reading more and more about. And every time I read it, I become more and more intrigued. Anytime I go back to Scotland, I take a day to myself, and I go to Anchor Close, and I stand there and think about what were the Crichanan Fencibles doing in this place on this particular night, you know, and it's a fantastic city to walk about. So my heroes are all those guys that basically created Scotland and made Scotland what it is today. To me, a lot of that came from the Enlightenment period.
Very good. So is these visits to Edinburgh, is that when you got the idea of doing something at the festival?
No, that was when I came to Canada. Another story. When I came to Canada, I'd maybe been here about a year and a half, and I had a friend back in Scotland had videoed me doing Tam O'Shanter and asked him if was this to put it on YouTube. So I said no problem. So he put it on YouTube. So there was this guy in Canada was doing this concert of Scotch Musical Museum, not Burns, but Scotch Musical Museum. And I got this phone call this day saying, "Hi, my name's Nils. Are you in Canada?" Because the video of me doing Tam O'Shanter, I have a big moose head T-shirt on, and he reckoned, you know, this guy must. So anyway, we get in touch. And lo and behold, I find that this guy, Nils, is a student of the Scottish Musical Museum. He studied Haydn at university. He knows the museum inside out. He's a world-class tenor, and he and I became very, very good friends. He does up when we do put things together. He does the singing and I do the recitation. He breaks up the rest, the singing with little pieces of Burns or Scottish Musical Museum pieces. So I've learned more about the Scottish Musical Museum from him too. So our idea was a couple of years ago, why don't we go over to the festival, which was an experience in itself. So last year we went over, we had a 5-day run. I don't mind admitting to you, our largest crowd was 62 people, and our smallest crowd was 6 people and a dog. You know, so it's a bit of a hit and miss when you go to the festival, but a great experience. And I work with Nils here in Canada. You know, we've been involved with musical groups. He put together a Scottish Musical Museum night, would have been 2 years ago, one in Montreal and one in Toronto, with professional musicians playing Baroque instruments. So they were playing the original instruments that the music would have been set to. And it was fantastic. So, and to break up those nights, you know, you got me to come along and do Tam O'Shanter again in the middle of it, just to give people a flavour. Yeah.
One of our previous interviewees, Jimmy Law, did a stint at the festival last year. I don't know if you know Jimmy, and he was allocated a basement that had about 18 seats in it, and it was also the entrance to a laundry. So,
yeah.
But he enjoyed the experience.
Experience was, yeah. Listen, you know, it's something I would seriously consider doing again, but there's a process to it. Actually going to try and do a 5-day run was the wrong thing to do. What we should have done was went to the Burns clubs, you know, contacted Ellisland Farm, maybe sort of came over like a few days early, went to Ellisland Farm and done a concert, maybe went somewhere else and done a concert, and went some, you know, and then do 3 nights in Edinburgh and then go on a little tour or do some pubs or something like that. That's the way to market it. Just trying to fly in and do it, because you're competing against hundreds and hundreds of events every single day. And the chances that people are going to pick you out is very tough. So there's certainly a lot of sales and marketing involved in the process. And if I was doing it again, I would certainly use those business skills, if you like, to try and promote it much better than Nils and I did. And I also think that you can't do it yourself. You need a team. You know, it would be better actually if the whole 7 or 8 musicians were there. So someone sort of down at the Mound and they're drumming up business here, and someone's up at the Grass Market drumming up business, and someone at 4 o'clock in the afternoon can run down and sell the tickets at half price to boost your numbers. You can't do that when there's only 2 of you. So there was a big learning experience to it, yeah.
Very good. Wait, can I bring you back to poetry? You talked earlier on about writing some of your own poetry, and I believe you had something published in the Burns Chronicle.
Yes, Mr. Dawson found it somewhere and asked if he could publish it, and it was, yeah, it was. Again, something else from retirement. I have all these poems that I need to, you know, some of them have been published, you know, and little magazines, not in a set, but in magazines of poetry competitions, they have been published, but this one that Bill picked out was Bill said he liked it because it was the story that many people had, and I suppose it takes me back to school, you know, when I was up the back of the bike shed saying I don't like poetry, and it was that gave me the little. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, we're getting close to the end of our time, but that would be a great way to finish off.
Okay, so this is it's I suppose, if you like, it's my life with Burns and rhyme. So it's back in the bike shed and me saying, I don't like poetry. It's glib and droll. It always talks about the soul, some love or bittersweet control our image minds. For scholars worship to enroll as school bells chime. As we grow up, they teach us Keats, Shakespeare, Byron, lines from Blake. We classify, interpret Yeats and other lads, whose inner thoughts we conjugate with cricket jabs. When men suggested, read some Burns, the thought would make my stomach churn. To read about wee mice and terns nae rafting brae, or birds wi' flapping wings a hurn in nature's way. No. To me, that's Nancy speak. It wouldn't make a tough boy sweet. Us lads came through that other street where smart guys stay, who knew it all and never met a better way. But then one night I did attend a Burns supper, right to the end. I listened keen to comprehend our old Scots tongue. I wondered how this Barnaby's Bend was so well sung. So what's this tale of Shanter Tam, of markets, drink and Carrick farms? They say he spied a witch's charm near Summerall Kirk, and came within a bridge's span o' meeting Nick. And tell me more about Don Wally. Oh, how I thought them very funny to see him screech and him say holy with pious pout, and how the bard cleansed out his soul with satire's clout. He spat the flame. I read some more songs, epistles, letters, poems. I practiced lines, some speeches, prose, and even learned wee turns. And knew a mass to bid propose the memory of Burns. I don't like poetry.
Well done. Well, that's a lovely poem. Is that going to be part of the collection when you get it published?
Oh, yeah, it will be probably at the end of the book.
Oh, very, very good. And what's the timescale for your publication?
Listen, I've already approached someone, and I have a lady that's prepared to do some editing on it, and so yeah, it's you know, you do them and you write them, but you go back and pick at them, and you're always picking at the scab of them and seeing what else, and so if you're going to do it, there is a lady who's given me some advice before that she's going to after get them into a format and send it to her, and then she's going to edit them, and I don't know what we'll probably be called Poetry My Arse or something like that. I'll be
well, when you get it published, if we're still doing these podcasts, we'll get you back to talk about your poetry book.
Oh, I would love to. I would love to.
Anything else we want to ask Ronnie before we finish, Jim?
No, really. I think we've been schooled this week by two expats in Canada with their poetry, I've got to say, because Henry sent us stuff, and I have read 4 times in the last 3 days his story of Piper Alpha in verse, which is humbling, to be honest with you, and that there was just absolutely terrific, and I'd like to thank you for it. The only thing I would ask is, have you any further ambitions in the Burns world at all, Ronnie?
Always got ambitions. Life's an ambition. So I listen. It's the fraternity. I think is fantastic, and I have made many great friends all around the world. So I think my ambition is to keep those friendships up for as long as I stay healthy and in good spirit and good form, and great people. You know, Jane Brown and Les and the many people that I've met over the years. So I think my ambition is to retain those friendships and the kindredship of the Burns Federation. That's ambition enough.
Oh, that's tremendous. I think that's a great sentiment to finish off with, Ronnie. So just like to thank you for giving us your time and telling us about your life with Robert Burns. Thanks very much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jim. Thank you, Douglas. Bye-bye.